We do have our architects here. We have Matt Gillespie from Piper Jaffray, who's a bonding expert. And between all of us, we feel like we've got a good team that can answer all of your needs. So the first thing we want to do tonight is take you on a tour. We've been giving tours now almost for a year, really, when you think about it. People have come in, call. If there's someone not here at the meeting tonight that wants a tour still, we have another meeting next Tuesday, a week from tomorrow night. Or they can call the school and they can line up a tour. And any building administrator, superintendent, we will give those tours to them. Because we want people to be informed voters. That was our big message this time around, be informed. And we're glad that you're here tonight to do that. So first thing we want to do is tell you that we are videotaping this. And the reason that we're videotaping this is so that we can share it out. So we don't want that to stop you from asking questions. We just want that so other people that can't be here tonight, we can put this out on YouTube to make sure people are informed voters. The first thing we're going to do tonight, my name is Barb Schwammen, I'm the superintendent. I'm in month 18, I think, of this. And you know, a lot of people say, well, why did you go for a bond issue in your very first year? Why was this a big project for you? One of my goals and jobs as your superintendent is to make sure that your students have safe, efficient facilities. And I've been in 4 different school districts during my teaching and administrative career, and that was an area that Osage can probably do a little bit better in. Now, when you walk around, things are going to not maybe look so bad because we've done a lot of painting, we've done some things aesthetically, we're working on updating furniture and things like that, but we still have a lot of structural issues. And so, again, it's like buying a car. It's a great analogy. Before you buy the car, what you do is you check under the hood, you kick the tires around, and you're going to hear that analogy. You know, as you're here tonight and you're checking the tires out, and you're looking under the hood to see what we've got. Some people in town are wanting us to build a whole new school. And I can tell you what, that would be awesome in a perfect world. But in a perfect world, that would cost $35 million. And although Matt can tell me that we maybe have that bonding capacity, our tax voters would not probably go for that because that would be well over a $4 increase in taxes. Skeleton-wise, we have a great structure. We just have a lot of things that need to be updated. Electrical, heating, some of our plumbing. You'll get to see some of those things. Again, we've painted some things. We've been working. In December, we spent about $100,000 alone just on some upgrades for the facility. And you'll see those things as we're working to make our school better for kids. But first thing is, if anybody has any questions that you want to ask off the bat, otherwise we'll take the tour first as we're getting everybody here and assembled. If there's no questions, we'll start on the tour. Goal is to be back here around 7 o'clock, so we're going to walk around, show you a few things, talk about the plan if you want to bring your papers with you, and we can walk you basically through that. So, thank you for coming. That's nice. Any questions that stuck out, anything that mesmerized? So, like I said, right now we have 2 separate cafeterias. You saw where the dance was happening. For those 8th graders, that's middle school. This is high school. That's another big change in an efficiency area, is we go from 2 kitchens to 1. Right now the food comes into this kitchen, and then they have to put it on carts, and they ship it down the hallways every single day. Any food is going back and forth down this hallway during the school day. So again, the cooks are actually excited about having it in 1 kitchen and working together. It doesn't mean we're cutting a ton of staff. We still have to prepare the food, but they will be working in 1 space. A lot of our equipment is fairly new and modern. That would all get transferred in that new kitchen space. But if you don't have any questions, I'm going to turn this over to the next portion of the show. We've been working, even before I got here, with Mr. Bass. Mr. Bass had a plan, and when I got here, like I said, the plan didn't meet the needs of the districts. It was a good plan for a new gym and some new tornado safe space, but to me it didn't address almost anything else that's in the buildings. And it didn't address Lincoln at all. And we feel that we're an entire district that we wanted to upgrade. So they were working with WWA Architects. I'm going to let them talk a little more, introduce themselves. They're going to give you a presentation. Feel free to ask questions at any point. So thank you for coming tonight, Reed.
You bet. Thanks, Barb. My name is Reed Westman. I'm one of the architects that have been working on the project with Wagner and Leonard Architects. With me is Austin Peel. He's our business manager, right? Your official title. Sure. Today it is. And we've been, as Barb mentioned, we've been working with Osage Schools for a few years now, previously with Mr. Bass, looking at competition gymnasium and a tornado safe room. And when Barb came along and we joined with the Build Your Future Committee, we took a more holistic approach to the whole school district as a whole. And so as Barb kind of hit on some of the highlights, I'll just kind of reiterate those, and you'll pick these up as we go through the drawings. One is there's a definite need for security and addressing that with making secure entrances for all buildings. Safety, addressing that with the tornado safe rooms. And then just a reorganization. We met with teachers and administrators and staff and looked at what do you have, how does it work, how can we reorganize things to make it function better. And then finally just looking at bringing things up to a modern standard, updating the old, bringing things like modern energy efficient windows, energy efficient HVAC systems and the like. And so I'm just going to briefly kind of go over what the scope of the project entails with the floor plans, and at any point just feel free to raise your hand and ask questions. So we'll start over at Lincoln Elementary. This is our site plan. The blue here is the existing building. We're going to maintain the bus drop-off here at the south, where it is currently. We're looking at adding some pickup drop-off parking on the northeast here. Now these green boxes is what we're proposing for the addition. So this green is a preschool tornado-safe room off the northwest corner of the existing building. And then this green portion is a gymnasium addition. Okay, and so we're trying to keep this building as compact as possible, given we're pretty limited with the site, keeping as much as we can to a new fenced-in preschool playground here, a new playground area here, maintaining an open basketball court play area here with a service drive into the kitchen area, which is there. So looking at the updated floor plan here, again, north is up here. The main entrance to the school is here, and so we would have a new secure entry system where you come in, have to enter the office before gaining access to the rest of the school. And one of the main priorities we identified pretty quickly is the size of the commons area. That is a very small cafeteria. And I didn't see Greg here tonight, but I know they've got, what, maybe 3 different sessions of food service.
6 lunches.
6 lunches, okay.
450 kids,
that just makes
a small area.
Yeah, the scheduling is really, really hard to get so many kids in there, fed and out. And so what we're looking at doing is taking this existing cafeteria space, this is the existing wall right here, knocking that out and going into what is the existing gymnasium. So this area here is where the existing gymnasium is, okay? And so we're taking some of this, giving it to the cafeteria, some storage space here, and then taking this area that's left over and making it a music classroom, okay? There's some existing storage rooms here now that we would take and kind of flip the doors over and gain access to the new gymnasium here to the north. So part of the strategy here is to take the noisy areas of the school and separate them out. The music is down here, we move it up here, get the gymnasium over here. And this gymnasium is really keyed in to allow better use for their PE classes. The existing one is really small. Assemblies, they could have the whole school get together in the room, and then additional practice space. Okay, so you have a full.
A big thing too is indoor and outdoor recess. When it's raining, the kids have to stay in their classrooms, and this would allow kids to have a space for that. When it's below 0 outside, kids traditionally stay inside. They'd be able to do that. And again, the current gymnasium is not, it's about this size, not even this size. And right now we're sticking about 400 kids in there for assemblies. That's what we're doing. That building was built for K through 2. And again, through time, as we've had less buildings in this district, you've got K through 4 in that building right now. There was discussion about, do we put 5th grade back over? And that committee looked at that very first year, so we put them back over here. We've kept them over here because we feel it's better for them academically. They have a separate schedule. They're not running around with the high school kids during passing times. They have an entire separate schedule. But yet, if you have kids that need more challenges in math and science, we can do that, and we can give those kids that higher level thinking that we need versus busing them across town if we had to do that. So they're right here, and honestly, it sets them up nicely for middle school as well. So we've decided to keep them here, partly because of that footprint, we're not sure that they can handle another grade level back over there. Plus, again, with all the facility needs, we have them here, and things have worked out very well for them.
Mrs. Schwalman, you made a very good point about the current gymnasium over there. I served as a phys ed teacher. Can you imagine having a PE class, 4th graders, in a size this big? It's a safety hazard. That gym was not designed for fourth graders, and that's what we're serving over there right now. If you were to talk to Mr. Braun from a phys ed standpoint, that's a very small gym.
Again, the lunch piece is huge for us because it's a scheduling piece. If you want to talk about what we're doing for academics, by making that lunchroom bigger, we're able to flow kids in through that school district and through our school time more. So that will help us out a lot with just academic scheduling, seeing the teachers that a lot of our kids need to see, whether it's for special education, extra reading help, extra supports, and those type of things, the TAG program, etc. So that's a big piece of it. That also frees up some other spaces for us. By adding those 2 preschool classrooms, 4-year-olds, we actually get state funding at about $3,750 per preschooler that comes to us, and that's a big piece. So kids that come to school at 4 years old, we get some state funds there, and that helps us out. We also collaborative partner with Growing Tree here in town, and so they're a collaborative partner because they partner with us as the public school. They also get funds for every preschooler that goes there. So the preschool part is a big piece of early childhood and getting kids off in the right direction.
Yeah, that preschool, that's the dark green area up here. So they would have separate access in and out to these preschool classrooms, sir, at these doors here. And this entire green, dark green, and this gray area would serve as a tornado-safe shelter for all the occupants of that school would be able to fit in there in case of a storm.
And we put it on that end so the little kids, it's easier to move big kids than it is little kids. So all of your older kids would be able to get quickly to that space. I think we have a time down now, almost 2 minutes, to get your entire building into that space.
So when you say there's 6 lunches that go through there, what time does the last group
I
eat?
think 1 o'clock, I think they start. from
They
like-
start at 10:50 and the last group eats at they're finishing up at 10 to 1. So depending on if they eat breakfast at school or at home, it can be a long period of time. Either way, early or late. And then if you think about them riding buses home, and some of them don't get home, so if you're eating early, that's a long time to get home at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
They have similar shifts here at the middle school as well.
We do. And Mr. Marley could talk to your shifts here.
As far as the middle school lunch shift and that type of thing, is that the hours? We currently, the biggest thing with our middle school lunch is we're 4 shifts, high school is 3. So from 11:30 till 1, that is our lunch shift, and we go by grade level. We start with the 5th graders and then 6th, 7th, and 8th. So we could possibly get down to 3 lunch shifts. Just we need to add a few more tables and chairs to make that happen.
One big thing that's been a hot topic and probably a misconception that's out there is there was discussion of the new daycare center in town. And so there is a grant that was written out there and supported by our school board. But again, that would only be putting that daycare center on that property. No school money, no school bond money, or the tax money would be used toward that. That was all going to be fundraised money and what they raised during the actual, the grant that they would receive. They don't find out about the grant until May. So again, that's just another piece of the puzzle, but we want you to know that's something that we think would be great for our school, because everybody, as far as parents and convenience and one-stop shop, if you're dropping off for daycare, a lot of people drop kids off at a different time so we don't feel the congestion. The city's working with us on some cutout parking spaces. That would be helpful as well along the north and east side of that development. So,
Are there any other questions on the Lincoln Elementary School before we move on? Okay. All right, here is the site plan for the middle school, high school. And again, one of the things we identified early on was to create this sense of entry. When a lot of visitors come to town, they have a hard time just finding where's the front door in terms of wayfinding, but also the identity. I think it can really bring a lot of value to a school to create a positive image or identity. When you have visitors coming, you can see a clear front door, so to speak, to your school. And so what we've done here is to create a new front main entry to the east here. This green represents what would be the new addition. There's a green here, that's going to be the music suite. This green on the east side would be the gymnasium and administration offices and kitchen. But the blue is the existing building. Okay, so we are sitting right about here in the existing high school cafeteria, which would get demolished in preparation for the new addition. What we're proposing here is to maintain bus parking to the north and open up Sawyer Drive here so that we get this flow of traffic around the building. Along the east here, we would have pickup, drop-off parking, and then farther out here, we would have the student parking and event parking. Now, we did eliminate some parking from what we have out there now, but we feel like what this leaves us with is still going to serve our needs here. Along the south here, we have new staff parking, and what's there now is a parking lot right in this area here. What we do is take an entrance drive here, make one-way traffic this direction, and exit out this way, and that would help alleviate some traffic problems there in the southwest corner.
Part of that is the city. When I first got here, I met Buzz, Jerry Dunleavy really quick, because Buzz came over and said, hey, we're gonna be opening the street up. I said, but it's July already and school starts in a month. They had to put this thing out, and so we kind of put that on hold to see where we were at with things. But we do know we have a lot of safety issues. The cops have come in and said it's just a matter of time. People are darting in and out. It's parents, it's the cars, it's the buses, it's the bikes, it's the walkers. So we've adjusted some of our times, but we feel this plan will help alleviate some of our traffic flow issues.
So does that eliminate the loop around in front of the CRC then?
That will be a decision the CRC will totally make, but there's been discussion with that board and working with them. They will have that ultimate if they will burn that back up or if people will still be in. I think they'd like to leave it open for their own CRC customers, but again, it's how do you change people's habits and patterns.
Where is that on the diagram? I can't see it. Where are the CRC turnabout thing?
The CRC building is right here,
So
and right now, correct me if I'm wrong, we can come in
right
here.
there. Oh, right there.
Yep.
Okay, got it.
Right there, so that would either be bermed, or some people talked about a drop bar thing for, I mean, there's been a lot of just good discussion about it. But that's something we need to work through, and again, that's not all our property. None of that cost of opening Sawyer Drive up, that piece is not our cost, that's a city cost.
So if the kids have to come in through the green thing there on the east,
Yep,
it probably would, may possibly eliminate that CRC roundabout.
for kids in the cars and dropping off, no, that would not be a preferred drop-off front.
Right.
We'd want you coming in on the other Sawyer Drive and coming in there on that drop.
Yes.
Or if you're a middle school person, and I don't have the pointer, but basically, if you're a middle school parent, we'd want you dropping your kids off in here. Because these cars would be parked, that's where our staff would be parked in there already. So middle school traffic would hopefully be here. Here's your drop points, because this is the new doorway that's there. And that's in that corner where the 5th grade classrooms currently are. Up here, we've got buses coming in, cars coming in. Again, buses would be loaded over here, so we're dismissing kids out that way, but that's not their preferred method of coming in. And that's something that we'll have to retrain kids and retrain parents. But we're willing to do that because we think it's the safest thing. And again, this will be the main entrance, like we said here, with that high school and the superintendent area right up front.
And with that traffic, that's a one-way, one direction, two-way on the other side then, right? So that's a flow, would be, you can only come in from the west, you can't go back out the west.
You are correct. So it's one way coming in off of Lancer. It comes by the CRC, and then that they're talking about making it probably enough for a bus to get through, but not two-way traffic. So someone can't be stopped and being passed out there. So that he'll come through. He'll come in. That becomes two-way again here because Sawyer Drive over here, they're going to straighten that curve out, or a lot of you maybe have hit the curve before. I have a few times. But on that curve, they're going to straighten that out. There's one light pole to move, and we feel that would make the project better. This area in here is something that we already have been working on, is improving our facilities outside. We don't want to have porta potties outside anymore for football and track meets and things. And so that's a concession stand project that you'll see take birth this spring already, and hopefully be done by football time. Not necessarily a part of that project, but Sawyer Drive with the old curve and the way that's there, that is not designed to continue that way.
You can see the dashed lines there, that represents where it is right now.
What's the event parking there left field for baseball? That's just for the,
This up here?
yeah.
Yep, so up here we decided there's all that wonderful green space, and we don't want to take into that.
Yep.
That was just conceptually that if you needed more parking spaces, you could do that, or you could park people out further. We have that wonderful fairground. You have a great setup here in this town, where you've got a fairground parking lot that's right here. We've talked about although it seems like it's a whole block to walk and nobody likes to walk the block, you've got the fairgrounds parking right there that could bring people back through. Are they gonna like
That's really not that far to walk comparatively to other venues. And also, it is nice that I drove through here on a Sunday morning and we had people parked in here heading into the CRC. It's kind of a family lot. When we're not using that, we can kind of use theirs and they kind of use ours, so.
Right, this is not necessarily a part of the plan as far as doesn't have to happen. That was something we just talked about, where would there be extra space if you had to have it. There was a rumor too at one time talking about removing the baseball field. That was discussed at one meeting, that if in the big plan a baseball field could be moved to create more parking, that became the whole, they're moving the baseball field. Okay, so that could be more parking, because you could move a baseball field. But again, it was conceptual, it's not something we're planning to do straight up.
So that building right out here, that was taken.
That building right there would be taken out.
Yeah.
Yep, so
Parking.
more, there'd be more parking spaces there too, yep. And you can see the dotted lines up here, where the spaces that represent. And like back here, where we've got some of this parking, that space is right out here where some of you are parked right now. Typically, nobody's parking there a lot during the day. So that's the what?
Where's the band going to practice?
The band will just have to move their lines, and band will still practice, probably out in this space right here. We'll just be remarking lines. Or, we actually talked about they could practice on the field, that would be a great idea too. But, don't shoot the messenger, I'm just joking. Dustin's shaking his head at me. These are the types of things we talked about, and that committee talked about. Could they do this, could they do that, what about this? So that's pretty good, unless they have any more questions on that.
Yeah, should we move on to the interior? So here's the floor plan. We are sitting right about here, the existing cafeteria. So this part goes out, this is what the dashed line represents, the existing building. This is the new addition here. So we enter in the main doors to the east here, and again, it's secure access. You got to go through the high school administration office before you can even get in the building. This is our larger competition gymnasium here.
So it literally would sit right out that way. If you're a visual person, think about it, you'd be the one end would be on this side and the other end out that way.
In this space here would be the high school cafeteria and the middle school cafeteria served by common food service room here. So let me back up here a little bit. In the colors represented here, you see a blue, you see a green, you see a tan. The blue represents really the middle school spaces, and the green represents shared spaces, which could be either middle school or high school, and the tan is really high school spaces. And so as we were wrestling through some of the things with the administration and teachers, trying to maybe shift things around so they function better, and so it just kind of represents maybe generally, you know, you've got the middle school in this area of the building, and then the high school more here, and then some shared spaces in between.
And a lot of you think, well, you're not doing that now. No, right now we currently have special ed classrooms here that high schoolers use, art classes here. So we do have kids going all across the building, all over the place. Our fifth graders, like I said, we try to protect them a little bit more. And so there are times they have to go across, but they've always got staff and things with them now.
So if you walk down this hallway where we just were here, this would be the current superintendent's office here. We'd open that up into a flex space. I think Barb talked a little bit about what that is kind of these spaces that would be flexible learning spaces, independent learning, or small groups to adapt to the changing technology. It's just be flexible space. We'd open up that corner. Again, we have a connection to the existing shop building out here. Make it all inside. Down at the far end of this hallway then is that new middle school administration office. So we have a new entry here. Again, one of the changes we made from this plan back in the fall was we were going to do an addition here as a part of the middle school administration area, and we decided we could cut back on that a little bit, in part because we got rid of restrooms, which we had planned to put in here for the middle schoolers, and decided that the restrooms located on this north hallway were going to be sufficient. So that's where the restrooms are here. Now, the existing middle school cafeteria space would become a flex space with the music suite here, and it's not detailed, but that would include instrumental music and vocal music with practice rooms. And that would be also the Tornado Safe Room addition in this location here. Again, we have another flex space here and more classrooms where the high school administration offices were.
Right, and so the middle school administration offices, which are right here, become the 3 5th grade classrooms, so they would be brand new. Right now, our 5th grade classrooms do not have sinks in them, they do not have the cabinets or any storage in them, they just weren't made for that. So those will get upgrades. Same with the high school offices, which are right here. Again, it shows 2 new classroom spaces. So that's one of the big myths out there is that, well, there's nothing for the classrooms. This is all about a gymnasium. Couldn't be farther from the truth because the cost is about 17 to 20% roughly, depending on exactly what bleacher, things like that. But really, you're talking compared to the total cost of everything else, it's a small piece of it. It is a piece, we realize that. We also feel it's an important piece of how the whole building flows.
There's a couple of new locker rooms here, which currently that's some classrooms there, and I think the existing band room is right here.
Correct. We love the flow of this because, again, it gives people free access. Right now, if there's a game going on up there in that corner, if you want to go to that door, up there, that's where the concession stand is, and that's the common space, that area up there. So we have, in this plan, a much greater size concession stand area, some new restrooms, and then this space where people can gather, either outside here, which models as your cafeteria, but during games it would be set up just like this, where people can sit down, eat things out of their concession stand, and then just space to talk to people. And then same way here, people going back and forth, if there were multiple things going on, you could actually have wrestling and basketball going on, or big basketball tournaments, or big wrestling things. So you've got that space for people to go back and forth.
Any questions on this?
It's a great time to ask.
Yeah.
So you're gonna air condition both schools?
Well, do you want to answer that part?
Well, so it's basically, on this one, we're looking at that, we've got to do the air quality. So the engineers right now are working on studying to see what all things they have to do. So the correct answer is yes, we want to. The bottom line is going to be, is that the most efficient, most effective system to go with? So we'd like to, because then again, you never have early outs for heat, things like that. But some of it's going to come down to the actual finances and cost. And then I'll go back to that committee is, for sure, are we going to do this, or is there something else we're going to cost off, depending on our costs?
So is that something you're gonna be able to cover with the current levy?
With the current levy, that's the goal. That is our goal, to do the HVAC in this. HVAC stands for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. And again, a lot of reasons that those are good things for a lot of students, whether it's kids with allergies. Right now, we open our windows and they don't have screens on, so we got bees running around in here and all sorts of things. There's a lot of reasons that that would be a good thing for our kids. And that's the goal. The problem is part of the building's off of steam, part of the building's off of hot water. Just trying to figure out what system right now is the best, and then an accurate price range on that.
So
Any-
if that were to increase, that expense were to increase, that would have to be added to your.
The bottom line is the bond passes, that we know this is the amount of money we have to deal with. We're not gonna go over that. We're gonna have to figure out how to make this work within our budget. That's the bottom line of it. And if that's the value that this group has really said, and if that's what our committee is saying we wanna do, that's what we need to do, is figure out how to do that for kids. It might mean changing something else somewhere out of here, or doing without something, or cutting the size of something. Again, and that's why you take it to a bond, is to see if we can get the money, then we have to live within that budget. So,
So then, if the project's gonna be done in 2019 on this campus,
mhm.
and then 2020 over the other campus?
Actually, I think you're done over at the elementary sooner than here, and they'll talk about that timeline.
Oh,
Yep.
We're gonna talk about that.
Yep, they got the timeline here.
No, that's
No,
fine.
but that's fine, it's a great question, because a lot of people wanna know, well, how are you gonna still have classes? You know, and that's why one of the reasons we wanted that bond to pass last year, we could have already been doing work this summer. But we lost a whole year's worth of time on the project because it didn't pass. So if it passes this next time, then what will happen is we have to get the bond and the prices and things, but we won't get to start construction on things, a lot of it, until that next summer. Because again, when you're working with the stuff where the kids are at, most of your work's gonna have to take place in the summer. Not everything.
Okay, so I must have missed that, the article in the paper about, you have this certain date in the fall that you do the count for the students for the
Correct.
district.
Yep.
So was that a plus or a minus from last year?
This last year went down. So my first year, we went up 25 kids, and this last year, we went down 35 kids. So it's kind of in this right now, we're trying to figure out where we're truly at. So again, I look at it as it was a net loss of 10. This year we've got, just tonight, we approved 6 open enrollments in and 3 open enrollments out. So October 1st is an important number for us, and that's our kid count. And we get about $6,700 per child, and that's part of one way that we build our budget. The second way we build our budget is what happens in Des Moines. And if you just were learning anything about that, they gave us 1.1% allowable growth. That's really not much of anything. It's something, but 333 school districts have to share about $40 million. So the bottom line is we're getting a little something, but Rick, you have your hand up?
No, not only did we approve 6 this month, we approved 5 last month open enrollments. We
Correct.
took in 11 this spring so far.
Right. So we constantly have kids coming to look here, but they're not only looking here, they're looking at Charles City, they're looking at St. Andrew, they're looking at Riceville, they're looking at all of our neighboring districts. And that's why one of the reasons too, we feel important that this is something that we need to do to keep where we're at.
So does your student count for the freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior class, combining that, how's that compare with the kindergarten?
They're actually really good. Tim, what's your senior class this year?
78 right now, 79.
And I think kindergarten 75. So in essence, we've got some of that. Now we have one class over there that's 53, but we also had one that was 84. So we're kind of all over the place, and like I said, I feel like we're a pretty stable district. Again, you look at the size of our community, the size of our industry, the things that we have going on here. We have the lowest unemployment. We're also one of the most oldest counties. So I've learned a lot through this process, I'm not gonna lie. I've learned a lot about our demographics of people and how we live in Osage. And again, you've gotten good use out of your schools and the money that you've invested in them. And if you look at that timeline that's on your sheet, it just shows when the major things have been built. And that's here in the back. The only thing that wasn't a part of this sheet was when they added the weight room on, and I learned too that that was through a $100,000 donation to add that on. That wasn't all school money that was there. In fact, that person's name we put up outside of the building a little bit on a sign for that person, if they'd like to give more money to our school district. We're always accepting donations. Do you have any more questions?
I will.
Okay, that's good. Anything else about the plan, Helen?
Well, just to kind of address the enrollment study that we got from Wes from 5CAST has us through 2021 to continue to rise. And that's based on a lot of different issues like birth rate and all of the different things, but it definitely is not showing us decreasing in enrollment.
I would call last 2 years anomalies. To go up 25 my first year was like the greatest gift ever. On the other hand, going down my second year, 35 was like the worst thing ever. So the bottom line is just what is our average, and so that's where you start looking at your kindergarten class compared to your senior class.
So you got 150,000 extra 2 years ago, and then this year you have 60,000.
You're right, we're gonna definitely lose. Plus, we also got only 1.1%. So there's a lot of intricacies, I could talk about that, because you also get something called allowable growth in your budget guarantee for when your enrollment goes down. Right? We have a lot of funding streams. Any other good questions out there? Anything else for you?
I don't have anything else. So if there's nothing else for me, I'd like to invite Colton on up here. He's with Dean Snyder Construction. He's going to talk about budgets and schedules.
Talk nice and loud, please.
So I'm Colt with Dean Snyder. We kind of came on after WWA put together designs. We started putting pricing together. There is a lot of changes to this from last time. I'm sure most of you guys saw the last pricing. So what happened after the bill bond is we took priorities that Barb and everybody thought was what needed to get done, and that's what. So we took everything that we thought was priority and stuck it into that 9.9. So this is what we came up with. I know it's kind of small, but what it currently includes, and we're looking at the additions for the elementary school, all the renovations there, renovations for the high school, middle school, which is all the renovations, so all the current classrooms would all get renovated that we have in the plan. To answer your question, the HVAC in the high school, middle school is currently allowed. There's an allowance in there for that for $1.3 million. So that should cover this room. Currently, we don't have all the information for the elementary, but we will have that, and then we'll work that into the budget as well. also, we're gonna do the complete refurbishing of all the windows and replace windows in the high school, middle school. And then it includes that, the music band Tornado that's in the high school, middle school. And so this, currently with what we have, that currently is at that 9.9 budget. And then we do have the rest of, everything else is currently just separated. And we'll take a look at that, we'll prioritize, and we'll, as we get prices and everything, we'll add or subtract what we need to stay within that budget, so. If there's any questions on the pricing or, what's not in there, what's in there? And Barb, do you want to go into the rest of that? Too much detail on that right now?
If they have questions about anything, I mean, it's basically out there, and again, they're estimates right now.
So as everybody knows, we were currently, last bond issue, we were currently at $20 million for the entire project. And we are still looking at that same, right around that same price, but right now we're just focusing in on, like you said, we prioritized and we took 9.9 of that and we put it to what we could get done within the month, so.
And then the sales tax money, the state is extending that so we can borrow against it up to the full 20 years. That's how Charles City built the entire middle school. They borrowed $20 million for that middle school, and that was all borrowed off of sales tax money. Now they're gonna come back and they're gonna bond for the new high school and what they're gonna do there. So they showed everyone, here's what we did, and they're doing it that way. When St. Ansgar did theirs, they went to a $14.6 million bond, and that was all tax money that used that. They didn't borrow against things.
So the project didn't technically change, we're just, right now, we're just prioritizing what we can get done under the bond.
It technically changed because our rates went up about 4% for construction and 2% on inflation. So what we had to do is start cutting places. And so back in the elementary plan, one thing that we really did is we reworked that gymnasium piece and the music room and having a hallway that went through there. We did spend a lot of time talking about that and working there, and I think we ended up saving almost $500,000 in the elementary school. Same here, we cut out a bathroom set, and those bathrooms estimated with boys and girls and handicap accessibility, multiple stalls, almost $100,000 to make that work. Same with the middle school entrance, trying to make everything less. Like I said, there weren't flaws in the holes in this thing, it's the fact we cut it down even and more to make that price tag the same.
Yeah, as much progress as we made on making all those changes, the estimate right now is 4 to 8% inflation for next year. So if we could have gotten this passed last year, we wouldn't be looking at those inflation rates. And so it's just gonna continue to go up, I would say, with how the construction industry is going right now, that's only gonna go up, so.
So at 48%, you're looking at a $500,000 to $800,000 increase every year.
Absolutely.
Right now, it's just, that's the trend right now for construction.
Now, if interest rates do something and they go back down, that could change a little bit. We can't predict that. And Matt's gonna talk about that. Matt's gonna go into how we lock into our bond, the percentages, and what he sees, because Matt is the guru in the state of Iowa on this topic, so.
Does anybody have questions on pricing? We can talk schedule.
So then, the schedule was, the grades was gonna be done.
Bring up the schedule. Here's the beautiful part. We can get you copies of this. If you want copies, we can get this for you.
So this is Lincoln. If everything goes well, we'll start right away in April of 18. That includes the additions, gymnasium and the preschool tornado room. We can kind of do that stuff. We can start a little early because we're not disrupting the classrooms and stuff. So we will start that in the spring, and then we'll roll right into some of the renovations right when summer hits. We'll use those 3 months, get as much as we can done, stop until school lets out again, and we'll do the same thing. We'll use our windows until we get everything complete. So we're right now projecting that to be the end of the summer of 2019 for Lincoln.
And honestly, when we moved the seminary building off, there was work happening there from April until when kids got out of school about June 1st. And so we would be very safe with kids there too. If there's anything going on, obviously, that's why we have Colton to help us do that.
So then, what do you have in your savings account that you put back, and then the pebble money, that's gonna pay for what?
That's gonna help pay for things that weren't on that other sheet. So that would be things like this cafeteria space, or it would be things in this building that weren't on that sheet. So we listed it off for the bond, and then it's pretty much everything else in the project that you see on the sheets ahead of you.
So that'd be
The large portion of what's not included right now is the addition that we would be standing in right
So we get an allotment for sales tax. So when you go shopping, whether it's Des Moines, Waterloo, when anyone goes shopping, your relatives, your family, strangers you don't know, when they go shopping, every single person, when you're paying sales tax, part of that money comes back to Osage Schools. So in essence, a lot of people are helping us pay for that. That's how I like to look at it. Maybe I'm wrong on that, Matt, but I can think that a lot of people are helping you pay for that. It's not just us doing that. It's us using those funds to make our school the best we can by what everybody in the whole state's spending. And it's like $938 per child per, and that hopefully continues to go up if people keep spending.
So that's in addition to the $6,700 you get.
Correct. That's sales tax money. And that's what did the library improvements. Those things, that's what we're doing. Since I've gotten here, things have changed a little bit. And there's people that can attest to that. We've actually been spending that money versus saving it all because there's things that had to get done. Like when you've got leaking roofs, furniture, just emergency things. And then, like I said, a middle school cafeteria has been new for the kids. The middle school, the library, which 500 kids use that. So yes.
And then the bond issue covers like new equipment, desks.
It's everything. So it's the furnishings, it's anything that's been part of that estimate for those classrooms, the cupboards, the things. In the gymnasium, it's covering some scoreboards, bleachers, things like that. Correct, Colton? Or Reed?
The one thing that I would correct is like the desks and stuff are not part of that price. But like all the millwork items, cabinets, sinks, everything that you would need besides the seating for the children would be the only thing.
And actually, that's been our goal. Is we've been doing a lot of those things, and you're seeing a lot of those rooms that have had those upgrades. Hopefully that we can get that done so there wouldn't be that extra cost going on at that same time.
Any questions on the elementary school schedule? So here's high school. That goes into 2020, but we're pretty much doing the same thing. We're going to start that spring of 2018, and the additions that we're talking about would be the sales tax money, what we're standing in. We could start that early over there, get footings in and stuff, and as the summer hits, then we go full on and start renovations. And pretty much the same thing that we're doing at elementary. We just choose our windows each year, get as much done as we can in the 3-4 months that we have, and we're projecting that to finish up in 2020.
Again, we've had a lot of people question, why not do this over 5 to 10 years, Barb? Why not spread this out where you're spreading the cost out? How many of you have ever done construction on your home? Once you tear into something, all of a sudden you're tearing into this, that. I don't want our students here to have that. We don't need to have that type of chaos for that long. That's why it's better to, let's get this done, let's do it all together. So it's a project where we're only bringing construction people in for that period of time. Otherwise, you're bidding it separate every time, and it becomes this longer expense to people. And again, the price doesn't get any cheaper, people. Unfortunately, these things, I'm not blaming anyone, but some of these things should have been taken care of a while ago. The price continues to go up. You've gotten your money's worth out of a lot of your projects here.
And I'm sorry, if you guys can't read this, the orange here is just design, construction documents. Getting into the bidding is that little blue. We do that in the January month of 18. We get through contracts, and then the green on all of these is construction. So that's where you're
Construction,
looking at
renovation,
Yep.
Anything that would be.
Yep, you're looking at those little 3-month windows. This for like this instance, we're focusing on all the science rooms that first summer, because that's going to take the most work. Those are the most extensive classrooms that take the most, just of all the.
So by fall of 18 or Christmas of 18, they'd be in there for sure, though.
Yep. Yep.
Any questions about timeline? Again, these things will be newspapers here tonight. I know we'll give them coverage of everything they want on this. It's been on our Facebook pages. We can get handouts if you want those things. We want you to be informed and to know here's where we're at with this. If not, anything else? And that's not a rendering of the outside. Again, these are renderings. We don't want you to think that's what it's going to look like for sure. But we've got some different viewpoints here of what it could look like for sure. And again, it's an entrance. It's people are going to know that's your front door to your school. This is where you go when you're here. And again, it's bringing people in. It's a simple architecture, some simple windows. It's not a lot of glass or anything really fancy. But that's what it could look like. That's not for sure what it looks like.
Peak roofs on the new ones.
They what?
Peak roofs on the new, no flat
Yeah,
roofs.
you see all the peak roofs and there's nothing flat about it. No flat roofs. Finally.
It's a big
So would that
So-
happen all the roofs? All the roofs?
Of the
would be
new
done?
construction. And so the other roofs will be taken care of. And at that point, like I said, we don't have a plan for everything to be pitched at this point. Because like I said, a lot of things are working pretty fine right now. But the areas where they're not, they're really not. So we're gonna bring Matt up next, and if you need to reload him.
Oh, good evening. Many of you have seen me before, but my name is Matt Gillespie from Piper Jaffray in Des Moines. And I'm going to talk through the piece of paper that has two sides to it. Hopefully you guys all picked one up as you came in. If you didn't, maybe you can raise your hand. There are some extra ones. If you have one of the ones that were handed out maybe before I arrived, you'll see that there's an A on one side. That's the one I want you to be looking at. The other one is basically the same information, but this just has more information on it, so there's a little bit more detail. And we're going to start with that side that has that A up in the top right corner. So what you see on this page, on the left side of the page, is an estimate of what the bond repayment schedule might look like. So you see that there are payments that go out 20 years. This assumes that the school board chooses to issue bonds immediately this summer. That may or may not happen. That will be a choice that comes later. If the expenses aren't incurred until next year, they could wait and not issue bonds until a year from right now, next spring. Doing that would match more closely to the construction schedule, but it would also take some risk that interest rates might rise over that period while they're waiting. So we'll have that discussion later if the bond issue passes with the school board to determine how quickly they want to get out and issue those bonds. So it would be a 20-year period no matter what. So it's either 20 years from now or 20 years from next year. It still is a 20-year payment no matter what. You can see in this particular example on the third from the left column, it's just for simplicity's sake showing you an average interest rate of 3%. If you were issuing these bonds right now, it would probably be closer to 2.8 to 2.85%. If you could have issued these bonds last fall before the election, it probably would have been closer to 2.1% to 2.2%. So there's a little bit of cushion here in case interest rates rise over the coming month and a half or 2 months between now and when the bonds might be issued. But of course, if interest rates are higher, if they're lower, that will have an impact ultimately on the tax levy. And then you see sort of in the middle of the page, there's kind of a fat arrow that's pointing downward. That's showing you what the estimated tax levy will be. And we're going to talk more about that on the back side of the page in a few minutes. But basically what you see there is in that particular column, if your property values never ever change, which of course that's not going to happen, they're either going to go up or they're going to go down. Over a 20-year period, they're going to go up, but they may go down in 1 year or another year, but generally speaking, they go up. But that particular column just shows your values staying stagnant. So you can see that the tax levy is at approximately that $1.80 range. So that's the tax impact that we're going to talk about with you. But just to the right of that, there's a little 2-column section, and that's just showing you an example of what would happen if the property values do go up. Now in that particular example, you can see it says, what if they go up by an average of about 2.5% per year, which may or may not happen. That's a reasonable estimate of what would happen, but it's not guaranteed. But you can see if the valuation of all the property in the school district goes up, the tax levy rate would come down. Because this is one levy, unlike other parts of the school and the city and the county's levy, that is a fixed amount. Once you sell the bonds, the bond payments do not change. So in this example, you can see that the principal and interest payments would be about $660,000 to $665,000 a year. So if your property values go up, it will take a lower levy rate to generate that same $660,000-ish. And likewise, if your property values were to go down, it would take a higher levy rate to pay those. And that does sometimes happen. But the district wouldn't be taxing more dollars. It would just be a change in the levy rate to generate that same amount of dollars. So you see, if they were to go up by 2.5% consistently year by year, that levy rate would drop from around that $1.80 figure probably closer to $1.10 to $1.15 by the time the bonds are finally paid off. And of course, the levy rate may go down more than that if property rates go up even more, and opposite if they go down. So that's just there to show you that the levy rate is not an absolute $1.82, for example. It will fluctuate from one year to the next. Then the right, very far right column that has the A above it. This is just showing you not a promise or not a guarantee, but it's just an option that all school boards have if they have general obligation bonds. So the bonds are backed by your property taxes. That's the main source of security. But the school board could choose in any 1 year or all years or never to use other sources of revenue that they have to what we call abate or buy that levy rate down. So the main source of those funds would be sales tax. So initially, the school board is not probably going to do that because many of this, or much of this project is going to be consuming lots of the cash that they already have, which we'll talk about in a second. But over the 20-year period, it's reasonable to think that the school may begin to accumulate excess sales tax money. They may or may not, we don't know. But if they do, the school board could, every year, each year in the springtime, about right now, when they're determining their next year's budget, if they had $100,000 or $500,000 extra or whatever it might be, they could choose to apply that and buy that tax levy rate down so that you as property owners pay a lower tax rate. And so in that example, and it is just an example, that just shows what if they use $200,000. So again, they could use $660,000 if they had it, and they could have you paying no property taxes for this. Many schools do that, not many, but some schools do that. That's obviously a benefit for property owners. The negative aspect that the school board has to weigh if they're doing that is that they just spent $660,000 and they don't have that money to go out and fix roofs and buy buses and other things that the school needs, just ongoing needs from year to year. So that would be a constant decision each spring, what kind of excess cash is there, if any, and if there is some, does the school board think that it's a reasonable use of that money to buy tax rate down. And it's only showing you that for a few years because certainly we do not know what's going to happen in the future. Barb actually said one thing that was wrong just a minute ago. She said that the legislature has extended the sales tax. That has not happened. That is being discussed. It is part of the legislature's discussion right now, literally right now, today, tomorrow, yesterday, etc. So that may happen. It was discussed last year as well, and nothing happened. There's a little bit more serious discussion, I think, about it right now, but that does not mean that they're going to extend it. Right now, it ends the sales tax. It ends December 31 of 2029. So if they were to extend it, it might be extended for 10 years. It might be extended for 30 years. They may take the cap off and just make it a permanent tax. We don't know what will happen. But if that happens in the future, there will obviously be more revenue that the school district will have that they could use to buy down the levy rate. They could use it to fix things. They could use it to do other expansion, buying property, whatever the school board needs at that time. Yes?
So if that expires in 2029, then the levy would, the local levy would have to go up because we'd have to make up for what they would.
No, the tax levy will not go up because those things that currently are being funded from sales tax, again, generally speaking, it's transportation, so buses, could be vehicles, vans, cars, laptop computers, technology, and just general maintenance. Actually, I should probably take my foot off the table because I'm sure it was just paid for with sales tax recently. Basically, all of the improvements that you see around the school right now were funded from sales tax. So if the sales tax goes away in 2029, it will not impact this project because this project is only obligating sales tax monies through 2029 because the school board can't obligate sales tax beyond that date. But if it were to truly end, then your district and every other school district in the state would have a serious come-to-Jesus moment, so to speak, about how they're spending that money. Because they would have to, again, many districts have, or some districts have gotten rid of their voted PEPAL, and they're relying only on board PEPAL. They would probably certainly have to go back and implement voted PEPAL, which is backed by property tax. So they'd have to raise taxes that way to fund their buses. They wouldn't be able to abate taxes by using sales tax. Almost every school now has some type of technology, one-to-one or computer program. Those programs would literally have to just go away overnight.
So is the PEPAL renewed every 10 years?
Yeah, the voted, there's a board PEPAL that's only 33 cents per $100,000 evaluation. And then there's a voted PEPAL, which can be up to $1.34. That's a separate thing. The voted portion has to be renewed every 10 years. And the board can, or the school can actually vote on it more frequently than that, but it's there, each time you vote, you're voting for a 10-year period.
So is it always $1.34, or is it somewhere in between sometimes?
No, there's a maximum of $1.34. No school can have more than $1.34, and it depends on what your ballot says for your local district as to what the levy your board is asking for. So they might ask for $1.34 on the ballot. If you give them that authority, they have the authority for 10 years. That does not mean that they're actually going to levy it every year for 10 years, but they probably are, because once you give them the authority to tax you, they're going to tax you.
So what's ours currently?
You have, right now,
$1.34.
you have the $1.34.
Yes.
So you have that highest level, which is about probably 80% of schools in the state have it, have a voted PEPAL. And of those schools, most have 67 cents or $1.34. Those two numbers are the most common. But it can be any number, $1.34 or less. So when that expires, sometime between now and when it expires, the board will have to determine if they want to come back to you and ask you to renew it. If we know the sales tax won't be extended, I can almost guarantee you your school board is going to ask you to renew it. If the sales tax is extended, they may still ask you to renew it, but there's probably more likelihood that they wouldn't, because they know there's this extra sales tax. But that's a discussion that's coming years down the road. We don't know what's going to happen with that tax right now. So on this page, going back to this page before we turn it over, on the very bottom left corner, you can see that the bond issue is $9.9 million. So when you go to the voting booth next month, that's the number you're voting on. You're not voting on $20 million. The project itself is a larger $20 million project, but $9.9 million is coming from your property taxes, from this bond. And the rest of it, you can see there are about $10.3 million. That would be coming from cash the district has, because the district has accumulated some cash, and from sales tax borrowing. So borrowing against that sales tax, but only through 2029. The board has no authority to go beyond 2029 as of today. So if they did fund the extra $10.3 million from sales tax, that borrowing would be repaid by 2029. It's not a 20-year bond yet. Now, if the legislature were to change that law tomorrow, for example, between now and July 1, and all of a sudden the school can borrow for a 20-year period of time, then they could probably either borrow and fund more than $10.3 million, which my guess is if the board decided to do that, they would just knock off some other things that are on the need or want list, but that aren't currently in this $20 million, or they would be able to stretch the payment of this $10 million out over a longer period of time. Although that adds interest cost, it does provide more cash flow from year to year, so there's more cushion. Again, those are all decisions that would come back later.
A nice method too.
Yeah, paid off faster. And speaking of that, this bond could be paid off more quickly if there's ever excess money to do that. And that excess money generally would come from sales tax. It could come from PEPAL as well, but usually it's sales tax. So there would be a call date, which means there's a date set in time. It's probably about 8 years into the future. And once we've reached that date and time, the school then can, at any time after that, begin to pay off principal. So they can pay off $10,000, they can pay off $500,000, they can pay the whole thing off if one of you wrote them a giant check and donated a bunch of money. But between now and that period of time, roughly 8 years in the future, the bonds can't be paid off early. But you can see in that bottom left corner, more than half of the project overall will be coming from other sources, which would be sales tax and some PEPAL cash. That's where that $10.3 million is coming from. Then we go to the other side of the page. And this page is showing you, it actually looks super confusing because there's tons of numbers and lines in there, but it's very, very simple. This is just intended to help you see what would it cost you if you own property if the school district actually levies $1.82. Now remember, they may levy $1.83, they may levy $1.85, they may levy $1.61, depending on what happens with your property values and what happens with sales tax and their ability to abate that levy if they choose to do it. But it's going to be probably very close to this amount for several years before there's any real reasonable chance for the school to make a significant change to that levy. So you can see in the top section, we break out those values by residential property, multi-residential, commercial property, and agricultural property. So the top section is residential, and you can see there is a bold, there are two lines that are in bold, and one says city and one says farm. Or if you look on the Department of Management's website, it would say urban and rural. So most of us don't really think of the town of Osage, or most of our towns now being urban, but that's what it's classified at the assessor and the auditor's office. But I just changed it to city and farm because that's what most of us think about. So the city, 71,232, that is the actual average assessed value of a house inside the city limits for this coming fiscal year that begins July 1. So that's the January 2016 value. We're always a year behind with those values. And that number's coming from the very bottom little table at the bottom of the page. That's where you can see in Floyd County the value of all the farm homes and the city homes, and then in Mitchell County. And then I just average those out. So that's where we come up with that 71,000 and the 89,000. So then the farm homes, that's the homes out in the country, 89,740. Now that's not the farm land or the outbuildings, it's just the farm house and the little plot of property that the house itself is sitting on. So that's the assessed value. And then we apply rollback so that what you're paying taxes on, if you're a property owner, is not actually the assessed value. And it absolutely is not the market value. So for those of you that came to these meetings before and saw me, you probably remember me sort of harping on, we are never ever talking about market value. I want to make sure you understand that, even though we have the old assessor sitting over here. He and I hashed this out earlier. We did some Indian leg wrestling up here and I won. So the market value of your property is not relevant to this discussion at all. Because what someone will pay you for your house or your business or your farm is totally irrelevant to what you're paying taxes on. But we begin with what the assessor says the value is. Whether you agree with him or her or not, it doesn't matter. What they say is what you pay. So we begin with that average. And let's just look at the farmhouse, just because it's the more expensive of the two. If you own an average valued farm home in this school district, 89,740, in the upcoming fiscal year that begins July 1, you're going to pay taxes on 56.9% of that assessed value. So that's going to be $51,097. And if it's your primary residence, which pretty much all of your homes would be someone's primary residence, as opposed to a vacation home or a lake home or a second house, you're going to probably have claimed homestead credit. If you haven't done that and you own a home, you should go up to the county courthouse tomorrow and apply for it because you're paying too much tax. That homestead credit will deduct from the value about $4,850. That number is not guaranteed in every year. It might fluctuate a little bit, but it's roughly that amount. So that takes that $51,000 value down to $46,247. And we're always talking about $1,000 increments of property value. So that's 46.247 multiplied the potential $1.82 comes up with about $84 a year, or about $7 a month for the average agricultural home out in the country. And that average is more than the average city home, which you can see is about $65 a year or $5.40 per month. That's to get you, depending on how you look at it, at least $9.9 million of stuff. And maybe you look at it and say, well, really, you're getting $20 million of stuff because the other part of it you're not paying extra taxes for. It's just the same sales tax, as Barb said, that I pay. So I'm paying it in Urbandale when I shop where I live, and some of that money comes up here because it's divided equally amongst every student in every county and every school district. So then you can see the commercial property, but we want to pay attention more to the agricultural property. And you can see there that there are also, it's a little bit more difficult, but there are two bold numbers, 2,234 and 2,250. So they're not very different. But the 2,234 is the average assessed value of 1 acre of agricultural land in Mitchell County, and the 2,250 is the average assessed value of 1 acre of ag land in Floyd County. So that may not be specifically to this school district, but you are in those two counties, so these numbers are going to be very close to what your ag people would be assessed at. So again, let's just pick the higher one, which happens to be the 2,250, the Floyd County land. That agricultural landowner is also not paying taxes on the full value of that land, just like you and I aren't on our homes. In the upcoming year, they're going to pay tax on 47.49%. So that's $1,069 for 1 acre of ag land. So that's 1.069 times the $1.82 tax increase equates to $1.94 per year per acre, or about 16 cents per month per acre. And then you look down below that, there's a little box that says Ag Land Examples. And that's just taking that higher of the two, which is the Floyd County average, and it's just multiplying out by 40, 60, 80, 100 acres, etc. to see if you happen to own 500 acres of average Floyd County land, you'd be looking at about $972 per year increase if the district is assessing the whole $1.82. And if you own less or more, obviously the tax is going to be more or less than that according to that schedule. But the important takeaway from this side of this worksheet is A, this is really quite simple. Hopefully you agree. We're not using the market value. That's especially important when we're talking about ag land, because I'm sure some of you are farmers and ag owners. You're not selling your land, even in a depressed ag economy, you're not selling your land for $2,200 an acre. The market value of that land is probably at least $5,000 up here in the northern tiers of counties, and probably $8,000 to $9,000, even today. And if you're in far northwest Iowa, it might be even up to $10,000 or $11,000. And of course, certainly it can be $15,000 or $20,000, depending on who's going to pay you for it. If you get the school to buy the land from you, or the city, you could probably charge them a little bit more, right? So importantly, this is just intended to show you what would it cost you if the bond issue passes. It's not to say that this is a lot of money or not a lot of money, that's up to you to decide. But hopefully it will dispel some rumors or gossip about how much a $9.9 million bond might cost you if you own property versus what your neighbor or your aunt or uncle or grandpa or grandma said that they thought that the tax was going to be. So any questions about either side of that worksheet or the bond process, all that sort of stuff?
If you don't, we'll be here for a few minutes to talk. Otherwise, we really want to thank you for coming out tonight and getting informed and getting the facts. We are having one more of these next Tuesday night, a week from tomorrow. Very similar presentation. This presentation will also be, like I said, sent out to all of our families on our YouTube, and we'll send out that link. If there's any groups you want us to come and talk to, want us to come to your coffee club, if you know there's some people that are not talking what you heard about tonight, we'll come and talk to them. You just need to call the superintendent's office, and we'll come to see you as well. We're also going to be on all the communities. So on the 2nd of April, we're coming to Maroa, to Mitchell, to New Haven, to Orchard, and here in Osage that day as well at 4 o'clock. So thank you again for coming. And let's thank our guests for coming. Matt and our architect.